Welcome to Melrose Unitarian Universalist Church. Our service this morning is called A Growth Mindset. Good morning.
Good morning.
I am the Reverend Dr. Suzanne Intriligator. My pronouns are she and hers. And last night I learned an important lesson that fully enjoying a chili cook-off and getting a good night's sleep are mutually exclusive goals. Is anybody here with me? Yeah. But I want to thank you, everybody who turned out last night. We had a great turnout. We had so much delicious food. It was so wonderful. And we had a lot of goofy awards, so thanks for that, too. A lot of fun was had by everyone. It was just so great to break bread with all of you. And the cornbread was delicious, too. I think I'm echoing again. Excuse me. No, that didn't work. There we go. So that was wonderful, and thanks to everyone. And I want to make sure that everyone knows about the clothing drive that we have now going on. It's a requirement for our high school students as they prepare to do the City Reach program in March. They will spend a day and a night getting to know people who are experiencing homelessness downtown Boston. And in addition to that, they'll be making meals and distributing clothes, so they need to arrive there with a good stash of stuff, and they are required to do a clothing drive. We need warm clothes and new underwear and socks. A full list is on the website and also in your midweek update. Thank you so much. We'd love you to donate by March 5th, please. Next Sunday, we have a special treat in store for everybody. Here in worship, we will have the one and only C.B. Beal leading us in worship and in person for the very first time. And then they will be staying, and after a short lunch break, we will have an afternoon workshop together to explore and get to know each other better and deepen our relationships. They wanted to personally invite you to come to that, so CB made a video invitation. So it's 2 minutes long. Could we please watch it now?
Hi everyone. I was going to make a really fancy video sitting at my desk, but then I don't know if you remember what it was like on Friday, but it is 54 degrees out here, and so I had to come out to my deck and talk to you from here. On next week, on the 19th, we're going to be talking about preemptive radical inclusion and some of the practices of that around bearing witness, when what we're bearing witness to is something that's really different from our own experiences. We're going to be sharing some fairly carefully curated and structured opportunities for sharing and for bearing witness to that sharing, and then reflecting personally about what was shared and what our reactions were to what was shared. We're basically going to be exercising some muscles of radical inclusion, and at the same time, we're going to learn, I think, a lot about one another and about the experiences that we bring and the ways we think about just some of the ways that we might bear privilege in the world. We all bear privilege in some ways. We all experience marginalization in some ways. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. I hope you're going to come. We're going to be all fully masked. It's going to be radically inclusive in terms of having the kind of environment that you all consistently create there, so that people, no matter how vulnerable they are, can be safer to be in the room. And I'm grateful as one of those people. And so I hope you're going to come hang out with us next week, because I'm really, really looking forward to it. And I am so looking forward to meeting you all in person after all of this time on Zoom. The idea of meeting you in person is just so delightful. So from East Hampton, from my deck, isn't it beautiful? Isn't it awesome? I thank you for paying attention and for being present one with another in so many important ways. All right, bye. See you soon.
And as CB mentioned, next week we are going to require everyone in worship and everyone in the workshop to be wearing the N95s, which we will have here in stock and can give away, just to make sure that we're protecting everyone in the room as fully as possible and to allow CB to be with us in person. So I'm looking forward to that very much, and I hope you can make it. Right now, let's see. Let's give a quick shout out to all the helpers who made today possible. Erin, Hope, and Audette, our greeter. Thank you, Erin. Erin is our usher. Our greeter is Wendy Mastronardi. Thank you, Wendy. And our coffee hosts today are Harry Ha and Jennifer Fanning. Thanks to everybody. And now let's say hi to everybody here and our friends afar on Zoom. Turn around and wave and shake hands, say hello, good morning. Hi folks on Zoom, it's good to see you. Hey folks on Zoom. You guys are looking good. Everyone's had more coffee than me, I think. Fantastic. Thank you for being here. Thanks for taking time to be part of our community today. I call us to worship with these words from the Reverend Amy Carroll Webb. We come together to celebrate the art of sacred unknowing, humbled by all that we cannot fathom in this time. We come into the presence of what we do know, perhaps the only thing we can ever know, that love is now and forever the only answer to everything and everyone in every moment. Now together we light the symbol of our faith, the flaming chalice. Here to light it for us this morning is longtime member Nyla McCulloch, and she will lead us in our covenant.
I invite you now to rise in body or in spirit and join me in the words of our covenant, which you can see on the screen. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, the end all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. This is our great covenant, one with another and with our God.
Oh, what knocked over the plant? Thank you, Nyla. Ooh, kick the microphone. This leg's not working perfect yet, but we're getting there. Thanks, everybody. Please, if you would, remain standing and join in our opening hymn, which is number 126 in your great hymnal, but the lyrics will be up on the screen, so you don't need to follow.
Sing my praise. Our story today is The Book of Mistakes by Corinna Lucan. And much of the depth of the story is found in the images, including some pages in the middle with no words at all. So I encourage you all to pay close attention to the illustrations throughout. It started with one mistake. Making the other eye even bigger was another mistake. But the glasses, they were a good idea. The elbow and the extra long neck, mistakes. But the collar, ruffled with patterns of lace and stripes, that was a good idea. And the elbow patches, they were a good idea too. The bush was another good idea. Dark and leafy, so that you couldn't see through it. To the frog, cat, cow thing, another mistake. The big space between the ground and the bottom of the girl's shoe was a little bit of a mistake too. But the roller skates, those were definitely not a mistake. The second frog, cat, cow thing made a very nice rock. And the girl with the very long leg looks like she was always meant to be climbing that tree. Even the ink smudges scattered across the sky look as if they could be leaves, like they'd always wanted to be lifted up and carried. And what about the girl? Please quietly observe the illustrations on the next few pages. What do you notice? What do you see? Do you see how with each mistake she is becoming? Do you see now who she could be? The end. Thank you for your good listening. And now when the children leave for their RE class, please take a moment to turn to a neighbor and talk about a mistake you have made. Maybe one that helped make you who you are today. Children may now leave for their RE class.
Thank you for that.
I'm not done talking about the sage.
Save it for coffee hour, John. While you were doing that, I remembered a mistake I just made 2 minutes ago. I forgot to tell you what today's service is about. Our service today is grounded in our February theme. That's the UU central value of love with a capital L. We'll be grounded in love as we look toward our future with the Next Steps process. Along with Kathy Sang, after the worship service today, I will be leading another discussion about next steps. Please feel free to bring your questions and your comments. Just grab a cup of coffee and join us in the parlor afterward. And now, we come to the part of our service that we reserve every week for quiet contemplation, for each of us to connect with our own highest values and our own sense of the holy. So if you would, join me in taking a deep breath and settling into your seat. Get in touch with your body. Feel yourself settling in. Feel your feet on the floor. Keep breathing. In our meditation time today, we'll start as we usually do with the centering song, and then we sit for a few minutes of shared silence, quiet. Then we speak to one another of our joys and sorrows, and then I will lead us in a prayer. Our worship theme for February, there are two: love, and our sixth UUA principle, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. It's a month for us to feel, to nourish, and to express love for ourselves, for each other, for our community, and for all living beings. Our centering song is number 299 in the Gray Hymnal, Make Channels for the Streams of Love. Tom will lead us. Please feel free to stay seated, listen to the song, join in as you like, and let it guide you gently into our time of silence.
Streams
stop calling that our time of silence. Quiet is good enough. We don't need silence. We just need grounding, and I want us to be welcoming to everybody of all ages here, so we can share quiet together as best we can. It is our tradition in worship to share with one another the milestones of our lives, our personal joys and sorrows. We speak and listen with care so that the sharing knits us further into community and strengthens our bonds with one another. So I invite anyone here who has a sorrow to share, please to come forward now and speak into the mic so everyone can hear you and see you. I invite the people joining us at home on Zoom to go ahead and type into the chat box if you have a sorrow, and I will read them aloud.
Good morning. I'm here to light a candle of sorrow for Florence's grandfather and Victoria's great-grandfather who passed away a week ago in Long Island. His name was Harry Mateus.
Thank you, Vincent.
My name is David Bliss. I'm sad and dismayed today that, well, for a little while actually, that for 30 years I've been hiking and enjoying Breakheart Reservation. And a piece of that, or what I thought was a piece of that, is now about to be separated from the earth. Literally, they're going to take off a hilltop and build a school that I voted for. I voted to fund, but I didn't vote for that location. If you want to know more, I'll talk with you later.
Good morning, everybody. I ask that you hold Demi Dubois in your hearts. I think many of you know her. Her father got COVID and then pneumonia, and they're taking him off of oxygen today. So if you could hold her, she was very instrumental in this community, one of the best organizers that I know in bringing art to our community. So if you could hold her in your hearts. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Brian Johnson. I'm lighting a candle, just kind of a twofer. I'm lighting a candle concerned for Kit Northrup, who's been running the Senexit House retreat that the men's retreat is usually at. And we've sent out communications from different people trying to find out, what's going on, and we haven't heard. So I'm just hoping if we can send universal good wishes that she is okay. Because the retreat is very special to me, and I'm sure a lot of other people in the church. Anyway, so best wishes for Kit, whatever's going on with her.
Hi, I'm Marie McQuaid. Tomorrow will be the first anniversary of the passing of my mother-in-law, Bill's mom. And so please keep our family in your thoughts. She was a very wonderful grandmother, and I couldn't have asked for a better mother-in-law. So we just can't quite believe she's gone.
Good morning, I'm Cheryl Ringen, and last week after a very wonderful dance show, I got a phone call from my brother-in-law, Alan, who lives in Connecticut and is Lee's brother. Unfortunately, his oldest son had a lot of mental health issues and basically committed suicide on Saturday night. So his parents are actually in Colorado right now getting him, and not next weekend, but the weekend after, we're going to be in Connecticut celebrating David's life. And he was only 37, and he was much closer in age to me than he is to my children. But I did find some pictures that they did know him. So.
My name is Karen Gabler. I'm lighting a candle for all the suffering in Syria and Turkey. I was very touched by something I saw on the news where a young man was sitting next to this rubbled building, and it was his brother and son under the rubble. And I realized that President Assad isn't letting in humanitarian aid, and that Erdogan came to power during the 2010s because of all the economic boom with building. And those buildings have now collapsed. So I'm just thinking about the ramifications of decisions and policy and how people suffer. So my heart really goes out.
We have some sorrows from our Zoom room today, people at home, from Chuck and Jane. We are in quarantine this weekend after exposure to COVID. From Dan Franklin, a candle of concern for my upcoming biopsy on the 21st, hoping for good news. And from Jim Duncan, 2 candles of concern, one for my mother Jean, who fell and fractured her hip. She is recovering from surgery. And a candle for my brother-in-law, Basil, who is in hospital. Please keep them and our family in your thoughts and prayers. A lot of sorrows in our hearts and minds this week. While Aaron lights a candle for us, let's keep all of those sorrows in our hearts and minds. Let's take a moment to feel them. Send our love out to everyone in our lives who might be hurting today. Send some love to ourselves for the sorrows that were unspoken. Let us remember to reach out to all who are hurting with love and compassion. Now I ask for your joys this morning. If anyone in the room has a joy to share, please come forward. And anyone in the Zoom room, go ahead and type into the chat box.
Hi, I'm John Postel, and my joy is it's a small one, and it's sort of normal, and that's why it feels so good. We went and on the spur of the moment, we had dinner at my brother's house with him and his wife last night. We had a wonderful time, and it felt so normal.
I'm Lillian Ringen, and I went to my first swim meet for my friend yesterday, and it was 4 hours, but it was best 4 hours of my life.
Good morning, I'm Rebecca Mooney. A week ago right now, I was at the Brea United Methodist Church in Orange County, California, where I grew up. It was nice the minister said to me, "Welcome home," which was very sweet. But it was a joy to spend a week in 70-degree weather and to visit my mom, who will be 94 in May. She does have some dementia, and if you think about the past, it can be kind of sad, but I tried to stay focused on the present and the fact that she still can laugh with me and say I love you, and still my mom.
Hi, I'm Martha Borkin, and this is a candle of joy. My son Daniel celebrated his 40th birthday yesterday. Now, some of you knew Daniel. He was in church school here 30-some years ago, but most of you don't know him, so I'll just tell you a little bit about him. He graduated from Melrose High School, and then he went off to University of California, Santa Cruz. He spent a junior year abroad in Japan. He lives in Brooklyn, New York now with his wife, Rochelle, and our grandson, Jasper, who's 2 years old. And he's a computer programmer like his mom was, so I'm very proud of him.
Hi, I'm Corey Mann, and this is a candle of joy for exposure to young people. And if you haven't done that in a long time, I really endorse it. I was a crossing guard for 2 years at the crossing right there in the center of Melrose, and of course saw the Ringen kids running across the street and making their way and complaining about school and hearing the moans and groans and all of the wishes and the concerns of these kids every day. And it was such a joy just to be there. And now I have switched over to being a paraprofessional in a school in Stoneham. And it's really a place where you see this range of emotions of course, middle schoolers, but just a lot of silliness and joy and love and caring from people of all ages. And if you have no exposure to that range of ages, I really think it's a great thing to do, even if you can volunteer.
Hi, I'm Garen Boyd, and I'm lighting a candle of joy today for the process of our citywide ADA report. In the next 2 days, well, 13th and 15th, we will be having 2 opportunities for public feedback on the report. One will be in Zoom tomorrow from 6 to 8, and the other will be in person at City Hall on Wednesday, same time frame. This is the first ADA report that's been done on the city of Melrose since 1996. We are very happy to deliver this to the city and hope that the process moves along at a good pace.
Hi, I'm Sarah, and this is Asa, who likes us to stay together, and Josh and Willa. And we are lighting a candle for our dear friends Ben and Laura, and Willa's friend Juno, who have come here off and on a little bit, and they just welcomed a baby, Nell, a couple of weeks ago. My God. She was born 12 weeks early, and it was pretty scary. And there's a long road to go, but everyone is doing well, so we're really grateful.
Sarah, tell us her name again, the baby.
Nell. Eleanor. It's called
Oh,
Nell.
Great, thank you. And our people at home, from Cleo and Steve, we welcomed our 3rd grandson, Hayes Meriden Darcy, to the family on Monday. And from Jane and Chuck, candle of celebration for Chuck's sister Katie, spending her 60th birthday at the rim of the Grand Canyon. So many joys and sorrows today. Beautiful sharing. Thank you, everyone. Aaron, please go ahead and light 1 candle as a beacon of joy for all the joys spoken and unspoken today. Thank you for your sharing. These joys remind us of all the beauty of living and remind us also to open our hearts with gratitude for all of our many blessings. For our prayer this morning, I offer these words by the Reverend Naomi King, who's not only a UU minister and a gifted writer, she happens to be the daughter of Stephen King. When the world's violence shatters the joy of a moment, we pause and reach out for the hands that remain. We open our hearts with love. When despair rises as a monster from the deep and drags down one of our own, our answer is that we open our hearts with love. When hatred and anger rage in fire and suffering, we bend to pick up the wounded, to bind ourselves, and we open our hearts with love. When fear whispers, build more gates, add more locks, the blessed are those who defend themselves, we rock those fears to sleep, and we let them rest as we open our hearts with love. People will do unspeakably cruel and horrible things. We know this fact. We live and die it daily all around the world. But we know the answer is found only with one action, and so we open our hearts with love. Hatred never ceases by hatred, but by love alone. This is the truth we affirm. We live with courage and with a wider and wider circle of that force that bends our lives to ones of mercy and justice and compassion. We open our hearts with love. It's the truth. Just by being born, you are loved. There is something within you and every person that can be loved. We open our hearts with love. In love, we pray for those families, those individuals, all the persons here and everywhere who are so desperately sure that there is not enough love in the world for them, who are desperately sure that they do not matter. In love with life, in love with the beloved, we turn to answer that desperation with assurance. You are loved. You are lovable. We will and we do love you. Now, attend to your life's work to love. It is the only legacy that matters. Amen.
This church is a self-supporting organization funded by your generous annual pledge. You may also contribute to our weekly collection plate, which we split every month with a deserving cause. Folks on Zoom can donate either way, using the orange button at the top right corner of our homepage at melroseu.org. For the month of February, as we honor our 6th UUA principle, the goal of world community, half of our collection plate will go to the Immigrant Support Alliance, a brand new nonprofit that has sprung up out of this church's immigration ministry team. We are proud to support this new effort, which helps to provide food, housing, financial, and social support to newly arrived Americans. Our anthem this morning is an arrangement I made of the American folk hymn, What Wondrous Love Is This? The new words are by Connie Campbell-Hart.
What wondrous love is this, oh my soul, oh my soul? What wondrous love is this, oh my soul? What wondrous love is this that brings my heart such bliss? What wondrous love is this, oh my soul, oh my soul? What wondrous love is this, oh my soul? What wondrous love is this, oh my soul, my soul, my soul? What wondrous love is this, oh my soul? What wondrous love is this that brings my heart such bliss and takes away the pain of my soul, of my soul, and takes away the pain of my soul, my soul. When I was sinking down, sinking down, sinking down. When I was sinking down, sinking down. When I was sinking down, the
Thank you, choir. That was beautiful. Did you know that over the course of the 20th century, life expectancy for most people in Western countries increased by 30 years? 30 years, I mean, that is a huge amount. You and I might live 30 years more than our great-grandparents did. Why is that? Well, there's a lot of reasons, but before the 1940s, it was commonplace for people to die from bacterial diseases like tuberculosis and meningitis, and from infections caused by surgery or childbirth, or even minor injuries like a paper cut. But today, those things don't kill us. And that's all because of a weird little accident that happened in London in 1928. You may know this story. The Scottish physician Alexander Fleming was researching bacteria at a hospital there. He came back from vacation one day, and he looked at the little petri dishes that he had set out with Staphylococcus bacteria in it. And one of them, he noticed, was contaminated, so he threw it away. Something made him go back to the trash that day and pull out that petri dish and look a little bit closer. And he noticed that the staph that was nearest to the mold was dying. The mold was killing the Staphylococcus, and he thought about it for a while. And he replicated that experiment again, and he called that fungus, of course, penicillin. Fleming thought that penicillin held promise as an antiseptic, but he didn't manage to convince any other scientists that it was worth studying. So his research went on the shelf. And it wasn't until 10 years later, in 1938, that an Australian scientist who was at Oxford University rediscovered Fleming's research, and he created a team to study it. And it took them 3 years of work to grow enough fungus to create enough penicillin to treat one patient. In 1941, they treated the first patient, and his condition improved remarkably. But he used up all the penicillin they had, and he died a few days later. No matter what they did, the Oxford team could not figure out how to make enough penicillin to make it useful until they came to the United States. They worked with the Department of Agriculture at a fermentation facility in Peoria, Illinois, and they happened to discover there a new growing culture that vastly accelerated their process, something called corn steep liquor, which is a byproduct of corn manufacturing, which they happen to have a lot of in Illinois, and it soon enabled them to mass produce the fungus. Then a year later, another accident. They held a worldwide search for the best kind of mold to use, and they ended up finding it on a cantaloupe in the market in Peoria. At that point, the scientists reached out to industry. The War Production Board realized that the real experts in fermentation were a few states over. In Kentucky, the bourbon manufacturers had big vats, and they knew how to do fermentation. So they converted whiskey factories into penicillin factories. And then Merck and Pfizer got on board. And by that point, the US was able to produce 2.3 million doses in time for the invasion of Normandy in June 1944. By the war's end, we were churning out 646 billion units of penicillin a year. Even though penicillin didn't really come on the scene until the end of the war, it's thought to have reduced the number of deaths in World War II by 12 to 15%. Now, of course, nowadays we're looking at the overuse of antibiotics and the specter of drug-resistant infections, and that's a whole other story. But for today, I wanted to share this story of discovery with you, because it not only is a monumental shift in the advancement of human health, but it started by accident. And then it progressed only in fits and starts after that, and through lucky breaks, and through many failures, and starting over again and over again. And it proves that when it comes to innovation and inventions, it's almost never a straight line from intention to product. In 1945, a Raytheon engineer named Percy Spencer was standing near an active magnetron when he noticed that the chocolate bar in his pocket had melted. That accident led him to develop an idea that eventually became the microwave oven. There's lots of accident stories that can be told about Velcro and Slinky and Teflon, Vaseline, even the chocolate chip cookie, which, comes from the state of Massachusetts. Woo! I bring up all these stories because our church is embarking on a major research and learning project, the next step in our Next Steps process. Right now, we're organizing our learning teams and zeroing in on our big questions and maybe somewhat on our methods we're going to use to investigate them. And from the outset, we should not expect the path forward toward learning and innovation to be straightforward or even straight. As I said in last week's sermon, we're in a liminal time, and the path ahead can be obscured. The bridge over the chasm is still invisible. We will have to build it ourselves, and we are going to make a lot of mistakes along the way. We're going to need a thing they call in schools these days a growth mindset. Now, you might say, what is that? I've never heard of that. If you've had a kid in elementary school in the last 20 years, maybe you have, or if you're in corporate training, you may have heard of a growth mindset. I didn't hear about it myself until the year 2016 when I moved here from Wales with my 10-year-old. And his fourth grade classroom was all about the growth mindset. The idea is that you ban the sentence, I can't do it, with replacing it with, I can't do it yet. Ideas like mistake or even failure are recast and reframed as milestones on the path to learning. And the research shows that these attitude shifts make a huge difference in learning. When students believe that they can get smarter, they understand then that effort is what makes them stronger. So they put in extra time and effort. For example, 7th graders who were taught that intelligence is malleable and shown how the brain grows with effort, those 7th graders had a clear increase in their math grades. I think by far the best exemplar of a growth mindset has got to be Thomas Edison. Famously, after 1,000 unsuccessful attempts to create a working light bulb, a reporter asked him, "What does it feel like to fail 1,000 times?" And he said, "Oh, I didn't fail 1,000 times. I learned that the light bulb is an invention with 1,000 steps." So while I was preparing this sermon, I asked our resident church historian, David Bliss, if he could think of any mistakes in our church's past, missteps maybe, that ended up to be blessings or something like that in the long run. And David thought about it for a while, and he got back to me. He thought maybe the big extension that the church built in 1965 and 66, maybe that is a learning piece for us in our history. When we decided to build that huge extension, there were 125 students registered in our RE program. And the minister asked the church to plan for a possible future where there might be 250 students in our RE program. So at the time, there were also 300 adults. So they had, and it was the edge of the baby boom. They had every reason to think that they might keep growing and growing and growing. But needless to say, that did not materialize. The baby boom ended. Even when this church, which was the Unitarian Church, merged with the Universalist Church in 1974, the RE program didn't grow all that much. And I'm guessing that the church leaders were really nervous about having extended themselves so far. But thankfully, in 1974, along came the Melrose Montessori School. They formed with us this rental relationship. And ever since then, they've proved themselves a reliable and trustworthy tenant. Next year, we will celebrate 50 years of partnership with them. We should probably do something to celebrate. So without our mistake of overbuilding the building, it's quite possible that Melrose Montessori would not have ever found suitable quarters, and maybe our city would have been all the worse for it. Today, our RE program is in a very different place from 1964. As I talked about in my sermon last week, We are down to a total of about 7 kids in each of our 3 age groups, K through 6, middle school, and high school. About 7 at each level. And we struggle to get 3 or 4 kids to attend for every event. So we've lost critical mass, the thing that makes other kids want to come. So one of our learning teams, led by Rebecca Mooney, moving forward, is going to focus on exploring models of RE, thinking about maybe other ways that we could serve families with young children. Another team, led by Kathy Sang, will focus on how we serve adults and elders and their spiritual needs. What do they need, and how could we better serve them? A third team, which I will lead along with Gretchen Locke, is doing basic demographic research. How is Melrose and the surrounding communities changing? Who is our neighbor? What do they need? A fourth team, led by Jenny Wen Grovius, will look at our church structure. Is there a way to streamline our committees and our decision-making so that volunteering here feels more rewarding? It's important to say at this point that as we move forward, we have no preconceived notions. We have no goals right now except research, except really delving into these questions. We're open to whatever we find, and we hope to present some research to the congregation around June, and along with it, maybe some ideas to experiment with for next year. In her book, The Church Consultant, Susan Beaumont, who I talked about last week, she presents a great example of a church who went through a learning process, something like this. Now, their circumstances were really different from ours. I don't say that we're similar to them and that we should end up in the same way, but I just enjoy looking at the learning process itself as a success story. And in the book, it's an amalgamation of different churches, and she calls it First Baptist Church, and it could be. I'd like to share their story with you. She says, First Baptist Church boasts a 180-year-long history. It has a big, magnificent building and a historic town square, but over the last 50 years, it's steadily declined. It's about 50 people now, and they really struggle to maintain the glorious building, and they've been on the brink of closure for years. But in the will, in all the paperwork, it says the church cannot be sold and used for any other purpose. So they're kind of stuck. They don't know what to do. They tried merging with another church. That didn't work. So the leaders got curious, and they prayed about what their future might be. And their pastor came up with a bold proposal. He said to them, we've got $300,000 in our endowment, and every year we're running at a $30,000 deficit. So we could just wait out the next 10 years and the last of us turn off the lights as we leave. Or we could take that money, or some big part of it, spend it now in some experiments to explore how we can use this building and our resources in a way that serves the community, that's appropriate to our size and to what the community needs. So they got together an innovation team of 7 church members, and they did this wild thing. They realized the people in their community didn't really have the energy for innovation. So they posted on Craigslist an invitation for what they called mission interns. Anyone in the community who had a great idea to use their building toward their values was invited to come forward and be paid 10 hours a week to develop that dream. So they met with anybody who answered the ad, they helped them, mentored them, developed the ideas, and they went forward with 6 experiments. I'll just tell you what they were briefly. 2 women named Lisa and Sarah were interested in food scarcity, so they took some classrooms and they built hydroponic gardens indoors. They rescued food from some of the neighborhood grocery stores, and they put together a vegan feast that happened monthly and really thrived for a whole year. Another person who was a Nigerian immigrant and in the School of Public Health nearby tried to open a free clinic in the church. That was her idea. There was some opposition to it. Another idea was a retired minister came forward to start an arts program for low-income families focused on photography. The 4th idea was a children's center for play and art. The 5th idea was a furniture donation center to reclaim the furniture, refinish it, and send it out to refugee families. That was actually so successful, it spawned other areas and ended up moving out of the church. The sixth idea was a petting zoo so that local children could come in contact outdoors with little pets, ducks and farm animals that a young man was raising. So for a year, this church tried all 6 experiments. Church members helped. Some of them did well, some of them didn't. At the end of the year, only the vegan feast and the furniture center remained viable. And as I said, the furniture center decided to relocate, and one of the vegan feast founders moved away. Some people in the congregation then got angry. They said, did we waste all our time and money? These experiments, they're random, they're unsuccessful. It's discouraging. The pastor had to say to them repeatedly, we're trying to discover a new relationship between the congregation and the building and the community. We're thinking about our core values and we're experimenting. Together they reflected on what they learned. They thought about how the vegan feast felt great to bring the community together, how the children's center brought back all this energy into the building. And they also thought that working with the refugees in the furniture center had shown them that there are actually hundreds of churches and nonprofits in their area that were working toward battling poverty, but that nobody was coordinating all those efforts. They sat with these learnings, they talked about them, and they prayed about them. And over a period of months, they came to some kind of clarity. Which of the 6 experiments did they decide to follow up on? None of them, actually. What they decided to do was to focus on the lesson they had learned about coordinating all of the local efforts. They decided to create a coalition of all the groups and nonprofits working to battle poverty in their area. And they housed the coalition in their church. And soon, 20 other nonprofits were housed in that congregation, in their building, and they were all coordinated together by this coalition. And after about another year, the congregation voted to give the coalition ownership of the building, to transfer ownership to them. Then the congregation stayed there, but only as a tenant. They didn't have the huge responsibility of trying to maintain the building anymore. The congregation stayed small, but over time it actually grew younger because all of their efforts in the community attracted some committed and energetic new young members. So again, I'm not saying that we follow their path. We're in very different situations. But I am saying this is a great example of learning, of iterating, of risking, and moving forward, and things that you learn along the way. I want us to notice that this church focused on its values. It used its resources to figure out what the community needed and then experiment with that and learn from that. They were open to restructuring and to deep change, and it took a long time for the solution to emerge. But in the end, they got to win-win-win solutions. They didn't try to return to glory days. They didn't try to bring in new members, to get new people to do what they'd always done before. Their goal was to express their values, to serve their community, to alleviate poverty. And they did that. And as a side effect, people joined them. It's possible that our Next Steps process will help us find a way to serve families and bring in new members. It's possible that we might decide to focus more on serving elders or adults. It's possible also that we might discover a wholly different path and a purpose outside of ourselves, outside of how we've always done things. It's possible that we'll need to transform ourselves to something new and different, something more in line with the times. Today we go forth on this learning journey with open minds. Like this service, I pray that we are grounded in our central UU value of love as we do it. As we said in our call to worship this morning, we are humbled by all that we cannot fathom in this time. But here we come into the presence of what we do know, perhaps the only thing that we can ever really know, that love is the answer to everything and everyone in every moment. For our closing hymn today, we sing a song that we usually sing to celebrate the bridging ceremony when we bless forward our young people. Today, I ask us to sing it for us as a church, to remind us to lean into the unknowing, to have faith in ourselves and in something greater than ourselves. Please rise in body and spirit and join in the closing hymn, which is Woe Ya Ya, number 1020 in the Teal hymnal. Thank you, choir, for leading us.
Heaven knows where we are going, but we know when. We will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. It will be hard, we know, and the road will be muddy and tough, but we'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. We are going. Heaven knows where we are going, but we know we will. And we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah,
Thank you. Please, everybody, remain standing and join me in our chalice extinguishing words. Now on the screen. We extinguish the flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thank you. You may be seated. Service has ended. Please enjoy a brief postlude from Tom on the piano before gathering for coffee hour in Parish Hall. Just mentioning again, if you have questions or ideas about our next steps process, Kathy and I will be in the parlor. Grab a coffee and come and join us. Friends on Zoom, you can stay in the main room or click on the breakout room invitation to have a chat with people who are there. Thanks again for joining us for worship, and have a great Sunday.